Record Store Nation. How the hell are you guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Record Store. And hey, as always, we have to thank our opening band there for the house music that they're playing to lead into the show. Its results may vary. Love those guys. Glad that they reunited. Glad that they got back together. Really liked seeing them back in the day. And hey, they're doing new music, as you just heard. So great stuff from Results May Vary. So thank you so much, guys. And it is The Record Store, episode 68. And today we are featuring from the gigantic wall of CDs. Yes, that is right, physical media, because I love physical media. From the gigantic wall of CDs, what was pulled, pulling back the curtain here a little bit, as it were, was a CD from a band that we had just done recently. So I had to throw it back, as it were. Shout out to Dan Bernstein, had to throw the fish back in the water. So we threw it back because we had just done that band not that long ago, and we pulled the new one, and the new one is Journey, one of the biggest bands in the world ever. There was a time when Journey was the biggest band on the planet, so we've never done a Journey episode here. The album is called Trial by Fire, so it is Journey this week on the Record Store. So, hey, props to Journey for with an extended break. They did take a break from in the late 80s, but with an extended break, they've been around in some form or fashion for 52 years. So shout out to Journey for that. So there have been multiple iterations of Journey for sure. The main staples, there's this album actually does have the main staples of Journey on it, and we'll get to who they were. But otherwise, other than them, Ainsley Dunbar, it's tough to say, was a drummer for Journey, the great session musician, was a drummer for Journey at one point. Randy Jackson, the doesn't work for me, dog, that guy, actually played with Journey for a while on a couple stints. And Greg Raleigh is probably the one most well-known member of Journey that's not with them any longer. He was the lead singer when they first started, so he was with them for the first couple albums and had a couple of their big hits. So that other voice that you remember before Steve Perry was Greg Raleigh. So the classic lineup of Journey is Steve Perry, the singer. You know him. Jonathan Cain, the guy who came from the Babies, that played keyboard for many of their big albums. Ross Valerie was the bass player, Steve Smith was the drummer, and then Neil Schon was the guitarist pretty much from the very beginning. Actually, he's been with them. He's the only original member that's been with them for the entire ride. He is now 71. He's still with them. And this album, Trial by Fire, included that classic lineup. So they've had 16 studio albums. Trial by Fire was their 11th. And it was the last album that had that lineup. So some of the guys on that lineup had been gone before that, came back for it, and then others departed after it. So as far as Journey, just too many singles to get into, just dozens of singles that albums consistently hit the top 10. Once they found their groove about 5-6 albums in, they were consistent hit makers and chart toppers every time they put something out. So every single album is either gold or platinum. They've sold over 100 million albums worldwide. So started, like I said, in 73. They were a splinter group from Santana. There was a couple of guys that had been in Santana. They wanted to break apart from that pack. They started this rock, jazz, fusion type collaboration, which became Journey. So they had done 3 albums. Their sales were terrible. And Columbia Records was ready to drop the band, and they implored them to change their style, change their sound. They gradually got more commercial. They actually discovered Columbia wanted them to get a different singer. And Greg Raleigh did good stuff. Greg Raleigh's songs, there were some hits with Greg Raleigh, but Columbia wanted Journey to go in a more commercial direction, which they did. Believe it or not, they actually discovered Steve Perry at a concert in Chicago, oddly enough. So Steve Perry was discovered, joined the band in 1977, and the next album they did with Steve Perry was Infinity, and that really just started the hit machine. Just started immediately when they clicked with Steve Perry as their vocalist. They clicked. So a couple albums later, Greg Raleigh departed, actually on good terms. Wanted to get off the road, start a family. So Greg Raleigh started or left on good terms. Suggested Jonathan Cain from the Babies. The Babies had just broken up, and I know we've talked about the Babies on the show before. One of my all-time favorite, most underrated bands. I love John Waite as a vocalist, and Jonathan Cain was the keyboardist for the Babies. So now he's a free agent because the Babies had broken up. So Raleigh suggests that they add Jonathan Cain to Journey to take his place. Couple albums in, that was working really well. Escape came out, and that was their most successful album yet. So it just cemented their success. You know, the singles that were on Escape were like some of their biggest songs they ever had. So anyway, so they kept going well into the 80s. They took a break in 84. And in 85, they needed some time off the road because at this point, these guys were doing hundreds of dates every year and producing albums every year. So in 85, Steve Perry fires the bass player, Ross Valory, also fires Steve Smith, the drummer. So tensions were getting escalated at this point. They weren't getting along. One of those typical situations where too much success, and somebody had to make a decision. So Steve Perry, the most recent, not the most recent addition, because Cain was the most recent addition, but not a guy who was there from the beginning, decides to fire these other two guys. So he fires the rhythm section, essentially, the bass player and the drummer. So he fires them in 85, and then later he quits because his voice is going. He's having health issues as well as his voice he can't continue. So from 87 to 95, there was nothing. No Journey, no music, no new music, no touring, no nothing. So they took a break, 7-8 years at that point. So like I said, they've been around for 52 years, but with that extended 8-year absence where they didn't do anything as Journey. So they all did work. Neil Schon started Bad English, which you may remember. He took Jonathan Cain with him, and so this was a super group because I think they had a guy from Bad Company was in there too. So Neil Schon, Jonathan Cain from Journey, and then they got John Waite to come back and sing with them. So they did 2 albums. So Bad English did 2 albums while there was this hiatus from Journey. No word, nobody knew if Journey was going to resume again because of the whole Steve Perry's voice issue. So they continued working. Those 2 guys from Journey continued working. And hey, it was more rock and roll from John Waite. So I was happy. And then throughout the course of these 8 years that they were off, there would be various little reunions where these 2 guys would work together or these 3 guys would work together. And gradually into the early 90s, they finally started working together and working out the peace and the diplomacy to come back together. So in 1996, full reunion, they got back together. They reunite in 96 to start the work on Trial by Fire, this album. So, and they buried the hatchet with Ross Valory and Steve Smith. So they had their rhythm section back again. So, but this album comes out, and they couldn't tour because Steve Perry was still having health issues. So there's some question as to whether it was physical, like he had a bad hip from a mountain climbing accident or something like that, or was it the vocals? Now, what I will say, were they still not able to tour because he could not hit the notes and he couldn't sing to the extent of what he was singing in the 80s? With Journey and the stadium tours and everything. So that's the question. What was the health issue that Steve Perry couldn't go on the road because of? Was it the throat or was it more physical? So the others wanted to continue. This album came out, and I'll get to how he sounds on this album, but for the most part, he sounds like normal Steve Perry on this album. So I know that there's a lot of tricks that they could have done in the studio. This was almost 30 years ago, but even then, there was a lot of tricks they could do in the studio where he could pull off sounding good and not so bad, not so much sounding, like he was a weak voice or a frail voice anymore. So I don't know. It's hard to say. He definitely did have the physical issues from the accident that he had, but he claims that the voice wasn't there. However, in the 8 years that they were off, what did Steve Perry do? He released two solo albums. So, I mean, he was still singing. Maybe he just didn't want to go on the road. Who knows? So the others wanted to continue. They wanted to tour. And the question now also becomes, did they force out Steve Perry or did he quit? So they did give him an ultimatum. They said, we want to tour, and honestly, spoiler alert, there were some songs on this album that they should have toured and they should have done live because there's some really good stuff on this album. So they wanted to tour. They wanted to do live shows. Steve Perry refused. So they gave him the ultimatum, either you go on the road with us or you're out. So he was out. So whether he quit, it's the I quit, you're fired situation again. So once again, reshuffled lineup with Journey. It seems like it was a revolving door from the very early days with these guys for almost 50, sort of kind of 50 years now. So they bring in a guy. They never did tour for this album. So for Trial by Fire. So they reshuffle the lineup again. A guy by the name of Steve Augeri replaces Steve Perry. Kind of confusing. But Steve Augeri joins, but eventually, not too distant future, he has to quit due to, guess what? Vocal issues. So Steve Augeri also has to quit Journey because he can't. He's got throat problems too. So later down the line, this is where Neil Schon discovers the Steve Perry sound-alike. Arnel Pineda is the guy's name, the Filipino kid, who was basically singing in a Journey cover band in the Philippines. And Neil Schon discovered them on YouTube, met him in the Philippines, met with him for 2 days to ask him if he wanted to legitimately join Journey. So you can only imagine how cool that is for this guy, who is by far the closest you'll ever hear. You could listen to this guy singing Journey songs now, Journey hits, and not know that it's not Steve Perry. This guy sounds so much like Steve Perry. It's amazing. So Arnel Pineda, this kid in the Philippines, just playing, whatever, these small bars or whatever in the Philippines. Somehow this stuff gets on YouTube and gets discovered by Journey themselves and is then asked to join Journey. So that's got to be this kid's dream come true. He's probably not a kid anymore, but it's got to be, when this happened, it's got to be a dream come true for this guy. So, and saw them last year. I'll talk about it later in the show, but saw them last year. He sounded fantastic. His stage presence was fantastic. I salute the guy for just so cool of a story that this guy doing a Journey tribute band and then is suddenly a member of Journey. So the resume of Journey. They went into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2017. 2005, they got a Hollywood Walk of Fame star. Done so many huge tours. Generally now they're touring with other big 80s and 90s acts. So they're touring with Def Leppard. Like I saw them last year at Wrigley Field. They opened for Def Leppard. It was actually Steve Miller Band first, and then Journey, and then Def Leppard. Def Leppard sounded really good, and I liked them and all, but I think I would have had Journey close, because Journey had way more hits. Like, every song was a hit that they did, and the audience just really responded to everything that they did. They responded to Def Leppard too, for sure, don't get me wrong, but I think that there was just so much more, no well-known songs that Journey did, and the crowd just went apeshit for them. So anyway, so that's who they're touring with now. They're still out there on the road, sort of. We'll get to that. So they generally are touring with acts like Def Leppard, Styx, REO Speedwagon. So I've seen them, other than the Wrigley time last year. I saw them in Chicago way back in the day, back when they were at their peak. Also saw them in Champaign when I was at school in Champaign-Urbana at University of Illinois. Had really good seats to see them then, so it was a really good show then. And that was when they were at their peak too, with Steve Perry on top. So sadly, in 2020, the lawsuits, and the countersuits over the Journey name and control of the Journey catalog began. So they've always settled out of court. There's been a lot of legal issues within Journey. Neil Schon sued Jonathan Cain in 2022 over a, quote, credit card dispute. And then ironically, in 2024, right after I saw them actually, in 2024, Jonathan Cain accused Neil Schon of, guess what, a credit card dispute. And so their tour abruptly ends. The tour that I saw them on abruptly ends. They were supposed to go to Ireland and to United Kingdom. They did neither because they just simply weren't getting along. And so at this point, I don't know of any shows that are upcoming. I'm not sure if they are, at this point, if they've buried the hatchet yet. They probably should. It's one of those situations like Heart, where Ann and Nancy Wilson had feuded for years, and then now have resumed having an actual relationship and touring again. It's probably one of those same things. Like I said, Neil Schon is 71. They need to get their act together, get back on the road. Even if they don't record new music, I'm sure Pineda is a good 20 to 30 years younger than those guys. And Pineda and they could probably produce new music if they chose to, if they wanted to. But at least touring and doing the hits and raking in the merch money that way, they should definitely be doing that. And I say, Neil Schon is 71. Not to say that he can't be on the road, but at 71, you want to make sure that you're touring and getting the last bit of it in when you can, because you got to make that money while you can. Not that he's hurting by any means, but I don't know, more credit card misuse and disputes there. He might need to make that money, so maybe they should bury the hatchet and get back on the road, guys. So anyway, but as of right now, I don't know of any tours that are upcoming. But back to this album. So Trial by Fire. It had singles. They released 4 singles from this album. It got terrible reviews. Most of the reviews were very, very poor for this album. Now they had not recorded anything in almost 10 years at this point. It did hit number 3 on Billboard. So the fans were there for it in the sense that they still remember Journey. They still love Journey, and they wanted more new Journey. So they did hit number 3. It wasn't the number 1 blockbuster like they had been doing in the late 80s, but mid 80s, I should say. But it still hit number 3 on Billboard. So, but like I said, reviews were terrible. We'll get to that. The album cover had the famous, it's called a scarab. It's the famous beetle cockroach looking bug that's seemingly on every Journey album cover. I don't know what the obsession with that bug is, but whatever. So the scarab was there, and it was on the side of a water jug. It's this weird Egyptian scene. Like, you're used to that giant bug flying through space. That's like the prototypical Journey album cover, is that beetle flying through space. So it was this weird Egyptian scene with this cat/woman on the cover. These guys levitating and pouring water out of pitchers. A palm tree/eagle attacking. So just weird art. I was turned off by it in this. Well, not necessarily the album cover, but there were no lyrics in the album, in the package, which, that's ticking me off. So, but what was there in the package? There was more of that same weird Egyptian artwork. There was many pictures of the band, so that was cool. Included one of them by the Golden Gate Bridge, so that was very cool, very symbolic, because they are so well associated with San Francisco, so that was very cool. But I could have gone for the lyrics being within the package. And by the way, this was a 16-track version of it. This was a bonus release from 2004, I believe it was. So this was originally, like I said, released back in the day, 87, or no, 95. This was released in 96. Man, I got to get my facts straight here. I'm like Fox News. So this was released in 96, then they did a reissue of it later with adding 1 song. So this happens to be the bonus edition of it with the 1 song, which came last on the album. Album is 75 minutes long, so we're going to get right to it. So first song on the album on Trial by Fire is Message of Love. It was the second single to be released. So I will say the core 5 guys, those guys wrote all the songs on here. There's no covers. There's no, remakes or anything. It's all original songs on here. And those core guys wrote the entire album. So Message of Love, not the Pretenders song. It's a very Journey open. It fits right into the classic era Journey. So I will say Steve Perry sounds normal on here. The music is clearly mixed way more prominently. At least that's the way the album starts. The album starts with the music taking the front seat and Steve Perry almost taking a back seat. So you're almost thinking was he already starting to suffer some of the effects of whatever his throat issues were? Based on this first song. I will happily say the rest of the album is not like that. But for whatever reason, on this opening song, you get the music way more prominently than you get Steve Perry itself. So Message of Love, just a great song. great music. It's totally in the Journey mold. It would have killed as a concert opener. It's a shame that they didn't tour on this album because it would have been an outstanding open to a show. Just a really driving song. It sounds so Journey. The crowds would have just devoured this song, would have loved the message of love. Should have been a huge radio hit, really should have. But I can see the critics killing them for this album because it starts with a song that essentially sounds like a ripoff of Separate Ways. It really does. There's very many elements of Separate Ways on this song, but just a great driving song. Loved it as the opening track on Trial by Fire. So, all right, we're halfway through the show. We're going to flip the album over. We're going to take a break. We're going to pay some sponsors. Listen to that one about the Tournament of Junk. And we'll be right back with side 2 of Trial by Fire by Journey on the Record Store. Stay with us, guys. All right, we are back. Thank you, guys. Thank you, sponsors. We're back with side 2 of the Record Store. This episode is Journey's Trial by Fire, their 1996 release. I keep getting the years mixed up here. So their 96 release, which was definitely post the Journey Gravy Train and huge hit-making sessions, hit-making a decade practically, just of amazing material by Journey. So this is at the very tail end of it. So Trial by Fire, second song is a song called One More. Another actual highlight of the album for me. So the lyrics read like Rush lyrics. They're talking about temples and war and prophets. So it's a bit of a departure for Journey, but a real good song. And like I said, for the first song where it sounded like Steve Perry was kind of taking a backseat to the music, here he's mixed more forward. He sounds really good here. He sounds good on the album in general. So I like, because they're kind of out of their comfort zone here. The music's a little bit different, and the lyrics are definitely different. Like I said, kind of reminiscent of Rush in the metaphysical aspects of what Rush would sing about. So there's a long jam guitar outro here. Again, One More is another song that I could have definitely heard them doing a tour for, and including, whenever they tour. Generally, when bands tour, they'll do 6-7 songs off the new album and then the classics, as it were. So I could see this, definitely One More would be another song that should have been played live, and it should have been on that tour. That never happened because of Steve Perry, for whatever reason. So, all right, third song is called When You Love a Woman. This was the big single from the album, and honestly, I don't know that I ever heard it. So it was, like I said, despite the fact that the album hit number 3 on Billboard, it just didn't get much airplay. So When You Love a Woman was the biggest hit from here. It was a piano ballad all about Steve Perry. So just didn't register for me at all. So it's a typical Steve Perry ballad love song. It was very Foreigner, I Want to Know What Love Is kind of sound to it. So what I will say is how many weddings featured this song. If you knew this song and you were getting married within, 10 years of when this song, When You Love a Woman, came out, this song must have been played in thousands of weddings. So if this had been released in the 80s during the Journey Gravy Train, I think if When You Love a Woman had been released during that period, it would have been a number 1 song for 10 weeks. It was so schmaltzy. It was so just sentimental. It was that typical Journey power ballad, that just would have torn up the charts, and girls would have loved the song. But it didn't get any airplay. Despite the fact that I think it was nominated for a Grammy too, it just didn't get an airplay. As familiar as I am with Journey's music, I was not familiar with this song whatsoever. So good song for what it was. Props to them for, trying to, use the same formula that worked so well for them and get another huge hit. So When You Love a Woman is the third song. So number 4, okay. Kind of going with the same theme here. Fourth song is called If He Should Break Your Heart. Shockingly, a highlight for me. So another one that would have been a monster hit in the 80s for them. If He Should Break Your Heart would have been another huge hit. It's a typical sad tale of the guy clinging to the girl after she's moved on and saying that he'll be there for her when he breaks her heart. Just a big time familiar sound, big familiar sounding Journey. Nothing, they're not, breaking any rules here. They're not going completely off base, although they do later in the album. We'll get to that. So just typical Journey formula, but hey, the formula worked, so why not keep going with it? So that again should have been another big hit, and just did not get the airplay. I don't know if radio was done with Journey by this point, or their record company was done with promoting them by this point because they took so long off. Who knows? So, but like I said, the appetite. I think the appetite was there for Journey because the album hit number 3. So, all right, fourth song, another highlight. If She Should Break Your Heart. Fifth song is called Forever in Blue. Has this kind of Van Halen sound to it. Just the Van Halen rhythm guitar. Not so much the rest of Van Halen, the bass or the drums or anything, but just the Van Halen rhythm guitar goes throughout this whole entire song. So Forever in Blue, another lost love song. Song is okay, but compared to how good some of the other stuff is so far, we're up to the 5th song here. The rest of the collection has actually been pretty good. So Forever in Blue is just kind of there, despite that kind of Van Halen sound to it. So didn't do much for me. So, all right, 6th song is called Castles Burning. This is actually a really fascinating song to me. It's another highlight for me. It is an immediately harder song. It has a jam opening. It is the story of this volatile couple, and they're in the breakup phase. And then the song has this spoken newscast clip of a Hollywood mansion of a famous couple that's burnt down. So it's really interesting because it's a really bitter song. The music actually sounds kind of has a Kiss sound to it, that kind of hard rock. But Castles Burning, talking about the breakup of the couple and how ugly it's been, and that then the mansion is on fire and the mansion burns down. So I'm like, is this about one of them? Or is this singing about some famous Hollywood couple from, whatever, the 90s, and they fought and then one of them burned the other one's house down or something? So I'm doing as much research as I possibly can. And the best theory that we can come up with is that it's just it's a metaphor. It's not specifically about a specific couple and the burning down of a specific mansion, but it's more of a metaphor of perhaps the best theory is the disintegration of Journey itself. That's what Castles Burning is about. So really fascinating song. Like I said, as far as the music goes, definitely had more of a Kiss vibe to it in terms of the hard rock. I really enjoyed this song. And it really got me thinking, and it got me researching to try to figure out what the hell is this about, because I'm thinking like, surely I would have known had, I don't know, Bo Derek burnt down John Derek's house, or, just throwing out 2 names from that era. But is it real? Was it really a house that was set on fire? Like I said, they literally played a spoken passage of a newscast towards the end of the song talking about the mansion that burned down. So who knows? But anyway, so we don't think it's about any specific couple or any specific house burning down, but very interesting song nonetheless. So, all right. 7th song is called Don't Be Down on Me, Baby. So shout out to Hutch, David Soul, for Don't Give Up on Us, Baby. I think that was a tribute to him. So Don't Be Down on Me, Baby starts just like Faithfully. Just the piano start of Faithfully. It is once again, the prototypical Journey power ballad. So it's all there. All the elements are there. The strings, the guitar solo, Steve Perry groveling. So Don't Be Down on Me, Baby starts a tradition here on this album of songs that are copying Faithfully, basically, to try to keep that gravy train going. So, all right. Then the 8th song is called Still She Cries. And I thought, boy, why does that sound so familiar to me? No, it is not Still They Ride. Still They Ride was a big hit. Well, a hit. I'm not going to say that was a big hit, but it was a hit for Journey. Still They Ride. So this song is called Still She Cries. So you can see, hence my confusion. So the open of this song is totally Wheel in the Sky. Just this acoustic guitar sounds just like Wheel in the Sky to open it. It sounds, with that, it also sounds like Jonathan Cain era Journey with the very prominent piano. So another one that's just kind of there in this mix. I think there's so many good songs in the first 6 or so songs on here that when there's kind of a meh song, it really stands out because some of the other stuff early on the album is really that good. So Still She Cries is just kind of meh. So then we go to, we get to some of these other songs. So, all right, the ninth song is called Colors of the Spirit. Sounds like this Native American open. So it's confusing because it's, supposed to be about Native American life, and it's these 5 white American guys singing the song. So it feels forced to me. They're singing about harvest and colors and spirits and surrender and all the trappings of the Native American life in America. But it's a reach for me. It really is. It's not terrible. It's just a real stretch, So I'm like, if any of these guys had been Native American, if Steve Perry was widely known for his, participating in Native American lifestyle or whatever, then maybe okay. But they're not. I don't ever associate Journey with Native American anything, So Colors of the Spirit, like I said, not an awful song, just it was heavy-handed. I don't get it. It seemed like they wanted to, I don't know. I don't understand, what this had to do with them, what they were trying to accomplish with this. It just was a misfire for me. It was Colors of the Spirit. So, all right, 10th song, When I Think of You. Another Faithfully, another piano open. So literally 4 songs after they did it once, they go to another Faithfully ripoff. So it's a piano open, again with the strings, again with Steve Perry's soaring voice, again with the guitar solo. It's pretty ballsy to not just do it once, but to do it twice on the same album within 4 songs of each other. When I Think of You is another remake of Faithfully. So pretty ballsy to try to pull that off twice on the same album. So, all right, 11th song is called Easy to Fall. Not much to this, just kind of there. Very vague lyrics, nothing special really about the music. For me, Easy to Fall would not have made it on the tour, on the Trial by Fire tour. Like I said, where they add 6 songs or so from the new album before they appease the fans with all the hits. Easy to Fall would have made room for one of the hits to be played. It had not much going for it. So, all right, 12th song is called Can't Tame the Lion. It is the 4th single. Actually, believe it or not, it was the 4th single from this. Again, never heard it on the radio, so I don't know. Heavier guitar here for sure. Had more of an early Journey sound to it. I think Can't Tame the Lion, as goofy as the title is, it makes the cut for the concert. So we'll just go with Neil Schon is the lion that can't be tamed, although at 71, perhaps now he's tamed. I don't know. Nothing deep here, but it's just a fun song. It has that old vintage Journey sound to it. So I can see them trying this one as a single. They probably should have released it earlier on as a single. I could see it doing well back in that Journey era. I think Can't Tame the Lion probably would have done well. So good song. Enjoyed Can't Tame the Lion in the 12th spot. So, all right, 13th song is called It's Just the Rain. It had a very Watching the Wheels, the John Lennon song. It just had a very Watching the Wheels sound to it. There was a very great rhyme in here. I loved the word crazy and betrays me. They rhymed it a couple times. Crazy and betrays me rhymed a few times throughout the lyrics here. Another sad breakup song. It was nobody's fault this time. It was nobody's fault. It was just time for them to break up. Again, with the heavy-handed stuff, there's the rain and the thunder sound effects as the song fades out at the end. Not a bad song. Just, I love like I said, where the lyrics worked here. They didn't work on that Native American song earlier, but the lyrics worked for me here. So I could have done without that thunder sound effect, though, at the end. So then that fades directly into the 14th song, which is Trial by Fire. So it's weird to me, because it didn't dawn on me. Trial by Fire is the name of the album. So the title track is the 14th song on the album. So isn't the title track is normally either first, maybe last, but not 14th. It just seemed weird to me. So the rain sound effects leads right into this one. It's trying to be spiritual. It's trying to be very deep and metaphysical here, but they lose me with the line, "Hello, Mr. Moon." And they're not singing about Keith Moon. That would be cool if they were singing about Keith Moon, but they weren't. They were literally singing to the moon. So they lost me on that. Neil Schon does very much of a Santana. You know, you can really tell his Santana influence on this one. The guitar here sounds very much, very reminiscent of Santana's style. But the words are just silly. So it is to me, this is the companion song to the goofy Colors of the Spirit. So I just thought it was weird placement, having the title track as the 14th out of 15 songs. And it was weird, of all the songs on the album that they could have named the album after, they name it after that. It's just goofy, weird song. And I thought it was a goofy, strange choice for it to be where it was on the album, as well as naming the album after it. So, all right, 15th song, which is the final song of the proper album. Deep breath. It is called Baby, I'm a Leavin' You. So, which you may think, you know, it sounds like a Led Zeppelin title, perhaps. It sounds like an old blues song, maybe. But Baby, I'm a Leavin' You was an original, and it's a reggae song. Now, if there's a band you don't associate with reggae ever, it is Journey. So I'm listening to it, I'm like, wow, this is actually Journey trying to do a reggae song. So when you think of reggae and you think of white guys doing reggae, maybe you think of Rush. Rush had a couple songs that were reggae influenced and they pulled it off. You probably think of the Police because they did a great job using reggae as an inspiration for their music. But Journey, not so much. So, did not work. It's the last song on the proper album, too, which is also very weird. The only reason this isn't the last song for me here is because I got the bonus version of it, which has one more song. So, it is Steve Perry trying to sound like Bob Marley. Whose idea is this? This does not work. This doesn't work. It's so awkward. This is how they wanted to close the record? I'm like, this makes no sense. It's just terrible. At least with the bonus version that I have, there's another song, you know, so there's a way to cleanse my palate from this being the last song on the album. And then on top of it being so weird and the fact that how awkward it is, and you know, like I said earlier, they got out of their comfort zone when they sounded like Kiss on that one song, and they talked about the arson of the mansion, and the lyrics were different, but some of the other efforts to get out of their comfort zone just flopped, and this is one of them. So, and then it just ends abruptly. It's just one of those songs that just ends, just done. So 15th song just leaves you hanging. It's a terrible song, terrible execution of reggae, and just ends abruptly. So thankfully, we have the 16th song. The bonus version of the album has a song called I Can See It in Your Eyes. So again, familiar sound to that name. It's not Peter Gabriel. But it's called I Can See It in Your Eyes. It's got a great propulsive Journey sound to it. It's a great rock song. Slightly different sound, you know, but more true to them. For sure more true to them than the reggae song or the American Indian song. So, again, another bitter breakup song. But better to leave me with this than leave me with that reggae attempt, you know. So I really enjoyed I Can See It in Your Eyes. Had a long guitar outro. This could have easily replaced some of the lesser songs on this album. So, like I said, I think the album started well. There was about a good 5 or 6 really good songs towards the front half of the album. But then it kind of peters out at the end. So, decent album for sure. I think, like I said, kind of petered out late. I can see the critics' issues with this album because a lot of it was very derivative of old Journey. And then a lot of it that actually did try to stray from the Journey formula just did not work. There was so much sameness to it, you know. And then, like I said, when they did branch out, it just bombed and flopped. So I will say it was a shame that they didn't tour on this album because there were so many good songs. In the first half of the album, there were so many good songs that I think they could have done live and would have worked and the fans would have reacted to. They could have easily skipped the second half. And again, there were 16, I mean, this is a bonus, but there was only one added song. So even in the proper 15 songs on this album, there's easily 5 songs that they could have trimmed off of here. And the album with the bonus, like I said, was 16 songs, 75 minutes. They could have easily gotten this to under an hour. They could have easily chopped away 5 songs or so that just did not work. but they insisted on piling 15 or 16 songs on here, and it just wasn't necessary. I think they could have had, if they tightened it up and they went with the best 10 songs on here, they could have had a really actually good album. Even some of those Faithfully ripoffs, they could have had that on here, one of them. They could have easily kept one of them on here, got rid of the other one. So they didn't get accused of ripping off Faithfully twice in one album. So anyway, if they had edited it better and trimmed it down and gotten it down to 10 songs, it would have been a much better album. So decent album nonetheless. I would say if they do reunite again, hopefully they do. Hopefully they settled all the credit card disputes and they get back together again. But if they do reunite again, I would say go. I had a hell of a time with them. Arnel Pineda was fantastic last year when I got to see them live at Wrigley Field. Of course, it's very cool to see a concert at Wrigley Field. So wherever you get a chance to see them, if they're playing at the Bratfest in one of the suburbs, at some summer fair in your area, go see them, because I thought they were a lot of fun and I thought they sounded great back then. Not even all that long ago, less than a year ago. So that is it. That is this episode of The Record Store. Thank you guys. Thank you, Brian, for producing. Thank you, Journey, all the various incarnations of Journey. Thank you, Arnel Pineda, for putting on a hell of a show last summer. Thank you, Steve Perry, for so many classics. Thank you guys for listening. We will be right back with you in, April with another. There won't be an April Fool's episode, I promise you that. I won't be making up, or actually I could do an April Fool's episode and do it as a Weird Al Yankovic. I'd have to look to see if I have any Weird Al in my collection. I know I have some Jerky Boys. That would be a weird one to review, but anyway. I don't think we'll be doing an April Fool's edition of The Record Store. We'll be back with a regular episode next month. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Record Store Nation. And stick with us if you're a Patreon. Not only do I have the best song on the album, however, I also have a great Neil Schon story. So there wasn't enough room to have it on the proper episode. So if you're not a Patreon, you got to subscribe, become a Patreon. It's only a couple bucks a month, and you'll get all these bonuses like this great Neil Schon story I'm about to tell you. So stick with us if you're a Patreon. If not, we'll see you next month. And don't forget, I have fun everywhere I go. See you next month, guys.